Hi, everyone. This is Carrie Kaufman here. Thanks for joining us today. If you're joining us live, or even if you're catching this later on a recording, do me a favor, say hello in the chat and let me know where in the world you are watching from. What city, what state, what country are you in? So joining me today on this very special live stream, I have Catherine Mattice, and she is an expert on building respectful, positive workplace cultures. Now, Catherine founded her company, Civility Partners, in 2008, and it kind of was born out of the result of working in a really toxic work environment. And that kind of set her in place on this mission that she's on today. So it's an HR firm that she runs, but it's not just your run-of-the-mill handbooks and compliance. Hey, Peter, thanks for joining us today. Not just a run-of-the-mill compliance work, although they do that too, but what they're really passionate about is using the compliance tools to create a workplace culture that people are healthy and thriving. They're experts at coaching people through toxic behavior and helping to turn around some of those negative, toxic or bullying environments that exist in our workplace. So that's who Catherine is, and I'm really excited for her to join us today. Full disclosure, she was also a client of mine for about 5 years, and I've referred several of my clients to her and her firm over the previous, I've known her for more than a decade now. So I really believe in what they do. And she's going to talk to us today about top tips for effectively managing behaviors beyond performance. And Catherine, I'm really excited about this topic because I come across a lot of businesses who have this experience where employees check the boxes of performance, but yet the behaviors aren't there. They're not the right fit for the culture. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by managing behaviors beyond performance?
Exactly as you said, that a lot of times managers are, they're good at, so you have people who are good at their job, they get promoted to management because they're good at their job and they're in this world of the job tasks and are you turning in your work on time? Does your work look good when you send it over to me and so on? And so organizations and managers get focused on the performance in terms of just the job responsibilities. But performance management, that phrase, is really about two things: what you do and how you do it. So you could be a stellar employee and get all your work on time. It always looks great and yada, yada. But if you're doing that being a jerk, that's poor performance. And so we have to see behavior as a performance problem. So that's what I mean by that.
Absolutely. So can you share any examples of how you've seen this come up maybe in some companies that you've worked with, or just some of the common ways that you see this sneak in that leaders might not recognize it for what it is?
Sure.
Or just
yeah. So you get, for example, microaggressions or exclusive kinds of behaviors or gossip, so it's these kinds of behaviors that or sarcasm, that these behaviors that they're not illegal. We don't really know how to manage them unless we've really been trained in managing them, and the employer has made it very clear that managers should be managing that. So it's a lot of this sort of subtle and not so subtle type of behavior that if a manager would step in early on and coach those individuals in that behavior and have them turn it around early, then it would save the organization a world of hurt. What usually happens is managers don't know how to step in. Yeah. They haven't been told they should step in. And over time it escalates, and then eventually it's a harassment complaint in HR, and then there's an investigation, and it goes down this path. So managers have the ability to really address that stuff early.
And I think a lot of people can downplay how significant it is because it seems minor, right? You said it's nothing illegal. They're still doing their job competently. But as one of my clients put it several years ago, I had a CEO roundtable, and one business owner was complaining about a top performer who had this toxic attitude, but they were a top performer, meaning that they brought in lots of money. And another client looked at him and said, would you tolerate just a little bit of cancer? Like just in your toe, like just you can keep it in your toe and it'll be fine. Like, would you tolerate that? Because we don't want to believe necessarily or stare in the face that it spreads. It doesn't stay contained, and it can be a killer. So give us what's a couple of tips that you have that would help leaders to manage this.
Yeah, the first tip is to reframe how you're giving feedback. So I know it can be scary and it feels like I'm going to go have this conversation with an employee and you're in trouble and don't do that. You got to reframe it to think about it as an opportunity to help this person be successful. And it's more than just they're in your company. What if that person leaves your company and goes on and does it somewhere else? They're going to ruin their own life and the lives of others. Right. So now's your chance to really impact somebody in their future. So if you can reframe that conversation into, this is really about helping this person be successful, I think that's the first key tip. Maybe that feels a little less scary. Like you used to tell me when it came to sales that you're just educating them. You're not selling them anything. You're just giving them some coaching.
Just helping people
yeah.
Really want to, right?
Yeah. A second tip for coaching is to talk about the perception. So often, I'll hear, well, I talked to this person and they disagree, or they say, that's not how it is. And so there's a lot of justifying and or denying that this behavior exists. And that can be hard to overcome. So the key there is to say, essentially, look, maybe I wasn't in that meeting. And yes, it's your word against that person's or these people. But the bottom line is that there's a perception that's ongoing. I'm hearing about it from several people. So it doesn't really matter what happens specifically. The reality is that you have 3 or 5 teammates who perceive you this way. And so we've got to change that perception. So that can be a really helpful coaching tool as well. And then recognize that people who engage in that type of behavior they are often high performers. They're very focused on the organization's success and the success of their teams, which feels ironic given the behavior they engage in. But you can kind of tap into that they want the organization to be successful. So help them see that, hey, you can really be educating people and giving them resources and tools and making the whole team better versus holding them accountable to perfection. Or, I always say to my coaching clients, you're not the competence crusader. You're a leader and an educator.
Right.
And so I think those are some good 3 tips.
Do you find it helpful or harmful to dig into specific situations? So I'll give you a little context as to why I asked that. I found that sometimes if you go too hyper specific with like, this is a situation where something went wrong, then it becomes about that situation, right? Mm-hmm. And they can defend it or cast blame someplace else as to why in that one circumstance, maybe their behavior was justified or was not as it appeared to others. So is that the right way to go? Do you dig into specifics about their behavior, or do you speak in more patterns or generalities about the types of behavior? Like, any advice on that and actually giving the feedback?
Yeah, I think it's both. So you have to get their attention that they need to change. And that's where having that conversation about perception, because they're going to argue that there's anything wrong. But as you're engaging in some coaching with them, certainly leaning on examples to talk about, because examples are a great way to kind of pick through what happened. And I do that in my coaching where we'll say, well, look, here's a theme that you're too sarcastic and you say things that people feel inappropriate. That's
for example.
Yeah, exactly. For example, and I'll say, can you think of some times when you might have done something like that? Why is that the perception? Let's try to figure it out. So it's not about what did you do to make that happen? It's just, let's just think about why people perceived it that way. And so, then we start to talk about examples, and they'll say, well, at a meeting, I did do it that one time. And then we can start to go, well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that you see leaders doing wrong, like handling this the wrong way, or just kind of pitfalls that you could give people a heads up to avoid?
Yeah, the number one wrong way that I see is not doing anything and hoping it just goes away and ignoring it. So that is absolutely not an option. So please don't ignore it. Again, it's easier to stop small little sarcastic comments or incivility than when it's been going on for 5-10 years and this person's a true bully or engaging in harassment. So that's one thing. And again, not getting caught up in the facts. I think especially HR and lawyers and business owners, we do get caught up in the facts. Well, did that actually happen? So stay away from that. The perception is the only fact that you need. And then thirdly, really leaning on your performance management system is a tip, but something I don't see, it's something that's wrong, is that your performance management documents should be looking at things like teamwork, communication skills. And it's so fascinating to me. I'll look at a performance management form from somebody who's accused of bullying, and they've gotten all 5s in these, soft skills or essential skills. And I'm like, well, wait, you want me to coach them? I don't like the messaging isn't clear. And so no wonder they don't think there's anything wrong with their behavior.
Right. So you're referring to their performance reviews or even KPIs and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, use that. That's how you measure people. And again, you're measuring them on their performance in terms of what they do, but also how they do it.
Yeah. How much time should leaders expect to invest in this level of management?
I think, I don't know, 99% of a manager's responsibility should be managing people. So that's the other thing I see, is that managers get caught up in their own day-to-day and their own tasks. But really, a manager is supposed to be managing the puppet strings, and everyone else is doing the work. And so all managers should probably be spending a whole bunch more time dealing with people than they are currently.
And if you have someone in this type of situation that you're working on their behaviors, is this a daily conversation? Is it weekly check-ins that's specific to these issues?
Yeah. So when I'm coaching, these people who have been accused of real bullying, I meet with them once a week for the first month for 90 minutes, and then I move into every other week for an hour. Time, so it dissipates. But if we're talking about, a manager in an organization managing some more kind of subtle negative behaviors, that should be a weekly conversation. That first conversation should end with, I'm going to check in with you next Friday, and we're going to work together on this, and I'm here to support you, and we'll just keep checking in until we feel like we don't need to anymore.
Just curious if you ever use or have an opinion on 360 reviews in this type of setting.
Yes, so I definitely do 360s when I'm coaching. So that's part of holding up that mirror. So I essentially say, look, I don't know what's going on. All I've heard is from HR, and that's probably all you know. So let's do some research. Let's figure out what's really happening. And so I interview 10 to 15 people, and then I move all of that feedback into themes, and that helps with confidentiality, but then it also makes it, you can't argue that, look, one theme is that you embarrass people in public, and here's a 1.5 pages of bullet points that are words from your colleagues you told me to interview. They all seem to agree that that's something that you do.
So the person you're coaching gets to pick who you interview for that.
Yes, which is fascinating because they, of course, pick the people they think are going to give them good reviews, their friends. But then I think it is it's kind of a smack in the face. Like, oh gosh, even the people I thought I was friends with see these behaviors in me.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So we're about to wrap up, but if you're joining us here live, leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, or even if you catch the recording, love to see how far this interview spreads. But Catherine, this was absolute gold. I think you're absolutely right that too many managers hide from these things when it's our opportunity to dig in, not just for the benefit of the company, but for that individual person. What an impact you have as a leader to really change somebody's life, to change the course of their career, and then the impact that they have on other people. And it's such a wonderful position of influence that we have that we have the opportunity to be in. So thank you for encouraging leaders to dig in and do this hard work to help their company culture thrive and be a healthier, more positive place for everyone. Let people know how to connect with you. If people wanted to get in touch about improving their company culture, where might they find you?
Yeah, well, I'm all over the internet. Just Google me. But my website is civilitypartners.com. I'm, of course, on LinkedIn. info@civilitypartners is my email address. I'm happy to, have a conversation with you or brainstorm ideas about things you're working on. So thanks for having me, Carrie. I love you.
Awesome. Love you too. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks to everybody for watching this. Feel free to share it. and spread the word so that other managers can create positive workplaces as well. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks.